Hello, welcome to a Matchbook Horse Racing special Periscope where Rory, Delargy and me, Tom Stanley, are going to preview the Matchbook Yorkshire Cup, which sees the much anticipated return of the unbeaten last year Stradivarius, looking to kick off his season much as he did 12 months ago by winning the Matchbook Yorkshire Cup and who knows, remain unbeaten again. But he was quite brilliant last year. In Rory, hi, first of all, what I thought was perhaps a weaker than normal division last year. There's a bit of strength around this year. So I'm not sure if he's starting off. I think he might be in a slightly stronger race this time around.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think he was potentially vulnerable early and late last season, but his tasks here and then at Ascot on his first and last start weren't as tough as they might have been. Although my worry with him coming into this race last year was that, for a horse who's going to be trained for the Gold Cup, he might be vulnerable, A, first time out, and B, at a trip short of 1 mile and 6 as well. But he never looked in much danger of getting beaten last year, did he? Coped very well with the relative speed test. Yes, it's easy now to look on and say he's only beaten Desert Skyline. That doesn't look terribly good for him now. He didn't look to struggle at all. He's a horse who, sometimes has to fight. His record is very good, and he's a strong stayer who wants quickish grind as well. So conditions are ideal for him. It's just that the trip was the slight worry last year, and is the slight worry again this time around. But he was produced in very good shape to win it last year. And again, the tricky thing with opposing him is, I think he's one of those horses that you can say his win record is a lot better than some better stayers historically, because the competition at the moment is not particularly tough. And if you did spot a really promising stayer, you might fancy your chances of getting him turned over.
I came into, a bit like you, this race last year thinking, could he cope on quick ground with that relative speed test? I then watched the race and went to the Gold Cup and thought, well, 2.5 miles. Don't know if he'll see that out given the Yorkshire Cup. So he danced every dance last year. Yeah, I then conversely went to Ascot on soft ground and thought the back end of a long season, like I wasn't necessarily opposing him outright every time, but you couldn't crab him at all, take him on. I wouldn't be laying him. There is a horse, Roy, that excites me, though, in the form of Ispellini, who I was quite taken with in his starts out in Dubai. I know he bumped into cross counter last time. I thought he was probably outclassed, maybe outstayed over the 2 there as well. But I think this is an ideal trip. The ground will be absolutely fine. And around about the 6.5 mark, if I was going to have a bet in the race, that's what I would do. All ends up against Stradivarius, but he's the sort of exciting new kid on the block in this sphere who does excite me, and I think he's very good and still a bit underestimated potentially.
Yeah, and you can argue that run last time out was a career best from Ispellini as well. He's clearly improved from 3 to 4. The one thing I'd want to see with a horse with his profile is that they can do it back in Europe, having been impressive at Meydan, because they don't always do that. So that would be, as I said earlier on, I'd always forgive a horse that runs poorly in Meydan. But similarly, there are horses who look world beaters in Dubai who don't really carry that form across. So that'll be the slight worry with him. But if he does, I think he's a real threat. He doesn't have much to find with Stradivarius at the weights in receipt of £3. But he does need to bring that form back to every ounce of the form that he was shown in Meydan to be a threat. If he does, he's very interesting. And that's the problem with the race if you're looking to take Stradivarius on. There are reasons why some of these won't necessarily give their run. In Southern France is a horse I liked a lot last season. His progress seems to have stalled in his last couple of starts, but it's too early to be ruling him out entirely. Muda Sadir is a really interesting horse, but his career record suggests that he might just be a monster on synthetic surfaces and just, useful Verge Gone Smart on turf, if even that. So he's got a little bit to prove, but he will stay the trip. He's been really impressive He was impressive at Kempton last time out. He's gone from strength to strength since early last season. He's got a really good attitude.
15.0 would 15?
Yeah, it's tempting.
Would you be tempted in it?
He wouldn't be an each way bet, would he? But yeah, he's the kind of horse you could take a flyer on. You can make excuses for it. I mean, he was beaten so far at Newmarket last August that you have to take the view that, you know, clearly that wasn't his running, and he should be a lot happier in this kind of track. He didn't seem to handle Newmarket at all. Wasn't at all happy there. But a lot of horses don't give the running at Newmarket. And on a flat track, on quick ground, this is his best chance of showing himself as effective on turf. So I think he's interesting. I also think that you can make a case for Mildenberger as well.
Yeah, he's a big pro, about 18.0. Go on, make that case.
Yeah, well, Mildenberger has always looked a stayer to me. And yet his form thus far has been mostly at 1.25 miles in Shropshire. I thought he ran a decent enough race in a race that Sylvester de Sousa controlled on Communique on the Jockey Club Stakes last time out. That race was almost entirely down to a brilliant ride from the front from Sylvester. He slowed it down at the right time and then quickened again. And the others were just, you know, I wouldn't say caught napping, but they were disadvantaged as a result, and that's the way Newmarket can ride. I reckon if Mildenberger is allowed to stride on here and go from the front, he's got a lovely big stride on him, and he's got Sylvester de Sousa on him on this occasion. He could spring a bit of a shock, despite the fact that it looks like he's got, you know, best part of £10 to find. I've liked him from day one, but you know, he's always a horse who's needed to use that long stride. He doesn't have a turn of foot. He does rather grind things. So I'm surprised that that he's not been tried at this kind of trip before, and I think he's an interesting one at the trip. I suspect that if I was going to go against the favourite rather than lay him, I'd take a chance on Mildenberger and maybe, you know, a smaller bet on Mutasadir at the prices.
Around about
because
17.0 is,
and you might again,
yeah,
and you might even get bigger than that. But I wouldn't be too greedy. What we've seen in the past on a number of occasions is the layers do seem to want to take Stradivarius on. He's been a big pre-race drifter 2 or 3 times in his career, but he's won every time. So whether those layers keep taking that chance or not, I don't know.
We will see. I'll stick with small stakes with this Bellini, but I think we can agree it'd be no surprise where Stradivarius to go on and win this. For all, you're certainly lining up some chunky prices elsewhere and seeing if it's a stronger division than the 12 months previously. Rory, thanks very much. Looking forward to the Matchbook Yorkshire Cup. That's coming up, race 3 on the card at York on Friday afternoon. Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.